A very good evening to you and welcome to Cross Current on yet another Friday evening. A historic visit of a Chinese president after 3 decades happened just Tuesday. Now, this official visit brings a lot together between the two countries as well as the region. In his 23 hours of visit in Sri Lanka, he also signed about 22 agreements. We will, in this program, examine what is going to be the aftermath and how it's going to develop Sri Lanka and China and the region as well. Now, the second half of this program with my guest, I will also talk about another very important current issue happened this week. It's the Scottish referendum. Just now, the Scots have found that they want to stick with UK. 55% of the Scottish population said we want to stick with the United Kingdom, while 45% of the population say no, we want to go away. So you cannot ignore that 45% either. But the question there is, what is the way forward for UK and Scotland? To talk about all these two major current affairs issues this week, I have my guest today. He's no stranger for us to our studios. He's an expert in international affairs and he has a load of experience in this area. That is our former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Rohitha. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us in the studio today once again. It's nice to see you.
Thank you.
And we got a lot to go through. Let's start off with this historical visit of China. But before we go into this, during your time, I would say that there was this build-up to this strong relationship which we are having now when you were the foreign minister. Can you just take us through that build-up, which I believe led to this?
In fact, relationships are ones that gets built up over a period of time. The time President Mahinda Rajapaksa assumed office as President of Sri Lanka in late 2005, November, and with the major issue in hand being terrorism and how we are going to defeat terrorism in Sri Lanka, thereby we wanted both strengths overseas and friends who will stay by us. And with this approach of our president, it was my task in order to build on what was more important, more relevant, as much as getting the very, very candid support from our friends in need. And China came on very, very much on the top of the list. And with that, President undertook several visits to China at that time. Hu Jintao was the President of China before the current President. And that relationship led to both support in terms of our needs and our efforts in the post-terrorism period, post-war period, which we are experiencing the dividends now. And the current visit that was made by the President of China is the most significant visit I think one could highlight for a long time. It's a visit of a friend as much as that of a friend that would continue to support Sri Lanka. Now, these where the visits can be defined in various ways. There are state visits, there are official visits, there are working visits, and out of these, visits that also brings about lasting benefits and strengthening of relationships between countries is what I consider are the true visits that the nation can be happy about. And these one of those happy visits that if I am to define it in those terms, happy not only for the President of Sri Lanka, but that for the people of Sri Lanka, and again for China as well. The way how these agreements that you spelled out, right across the border, in terms of wider economic cooperation, highlights what people are seeking is economic opportunities. And these are the foundations and the parameters within which those fundamentals can be developed in terms of countries' pursuit for greater economic development. And I think we have worked extremely well in terms of this visit by President Rajapaksa to nail down what is important for Sri Lanka out of the China relationship. And reciprocation has come well by China. Now, a country won't just come on a visit like that of a big country like...
that was actually to be my
next question. Okay,
because
I leave
why
you
a
to
visit after 28 years? Yeah, all of that.
And again, as you correctly put it, and I totally agree with you, after 28 years, our relationship had remained more than better. Sometimes relationships can recede
Yeah.
from good to not so good or little distant. And China has come on top because China, our president has visited China by now over 7 times, I take it.
Yes.
And with that, it shows how close China had been to Sri Lanka to invite our president to come over on very, very important occasions, including for Olympics when China hosted. Sri Lanka's president had a very important position there. And several of these conferences they hold in China, our president has become a very important guest. And in addition to that, the visit by the Chinese president at a time when China is looking to the world at large, and China has picked on Sri Lanka fairly closely. And the agreement that we just mentioned reflect the very intentions of China to seal a cooperation that is beneficial to both sides, including the FTA that may come in the near future, will give enough and more opportunities for Sri Lanka's economic cooperation and political goodwill between the two countries.
Right. I think we broad-based touch upon all these things. We might go into detail. And now, we understand China has invested about 125 billion in the recent past around the world, and we have got a major portion. They've helped us with the harbor, the infrastructure, the roads, and now the port city. Now, what is the investment strength? The investment alone, how can it build a strength? Is my one question. And another question, couple this with, somebody would ask, these investments are loans. If they are loans, it's part of it, or if they are aids, part of it, aren't we getting obliged too much to a country? What would be your
If
take
you
on
look
this?
at in very simple terms, what do we need in Sri Lanka? Do we need to be dormant, very static, and inactive in terms of the people's needs?
Right.
Our president could have easily relaxed immediately after defeating terrorism, and as he promised to the people, he has delivered on that. That he defeated terrorism within a period of like 3.5 years to 4 years, and completely eradicated the menace of terrorism from Sri Lanka's soil.
Right.
Now he has delivered on what he promised to the people in terms of his manifesto in 2005. Now, on that goodwill alone, he could have just had a very conservative approach in terms of development. But he went beyond that. He said, I have to deliver the peace dividend to the people.
Right.
What do you mean by the peace dividend?
Right.
For 30 years, we were lacking in terms of real-term development. Yes, there was conservative development. There were other economic goals that were pursued by successive governments, no doubt. But we also have to accelerate our development drive to be in par with other developed countries in the world. And we couldn't do that for 30 long years, and our people deserve more. And with that in mind, I'm sure the President unleashed this accelerated development program. In order to develop now, what do you want? You need investments, you need credit lines. In the event people are going to give us aid, take it on the critical social sectors to improve them. And our President went on with partners for development. And Japan is one, and China came on top, because they identified Sri Lanka as a country that has the potential and the goodwill that can be extended. And with that, President scored in nailing that opening, I would say, for the greater good of Sri Lanka. That is how all these roads, the highways, expressways, the ports all started coming. Maybe you made a point that aren't they loans? Now, in the absence of taking a loan, could we have the presence of development, or can we today visualize all these things in real term as development? Otherwise, we would have been dreaming.
Right.
And which is the country that can have development without getting foreign assistance? These assistance can come in the technical cooperation, in the FDI promotion, in the credit lines that they will open up for Sri Lanka. And a credit line itself will speak. There is strength to repay. Now, the strength to repay is a good, I would say, a yardstick to measure your economic standing, your financial standing. And with that financial standing getting reflected, you are in a position to get concessionary loans, which I would term is useful. And with that, you are getting the benefits being put in terms of infrastructure development that can later on be measured to create industrial zones, new cities, ports, airports, hotel networks, likewise. Now, what has the President of China done in India?
Right.
He immediately went to India from here to Gujarat, to the Prime Minister's home state on the 17th itself. And what did they do there? They want to create industrial zones, China-India industrial zones. So that means you want to bring in the productivity centers of the world, the dynamos that can create productivity and industrial growth to the region. And in the event India is going to grow and China is growing in Asia and Sri Lanka is being in the network,
right,
won't we have the benefit of this global, the regional growth also to get penetrated to Sri Lanka?
Yeah.
Now, in the absence of any development infrastructure being in Sri Lanka, could we have the benefits coming to Sri Lanka? How will they look at Sri Lanka? They look at Sri Lanka as a land and a land alone, without any facilities to be to capture, in order to harness their own productivity to get across to the world.
Right.
So therefore, I think we have to be part of the global, the regional trend of development, and we also have to pitch into a point at which we can plug ourselves for the development lines.
Yeah. Can I also ask you that it has been mooted out by different people that taking loans, the terms of loans are also easy in China. They don't try to suppress like some other loan institutions and countries does. Is that correct?
It's like this. A lot of countries would like to give loans and under various different connotations and criteria.
Yes.
Now, if you go to the West, they'll look at beyond your capacity to repay.
Yes.
They'll bring a moral judgment on various other political issues where the recipient is concerned, where we are concerned, whether we could be measured to qualify those thresholds. Now, China, for that matter, is more liberal, I would say. And the People's Bank of China, the China National Bank, will look at the development agenda to be supported. Yes, development must be supported. Now, thereby, we are in a better position, and they will be more flexible with a country that has a potential more than that of its other considerations. So I think Sri Lanka will be pitched well as a recipient and an acceptable recipient where China's yardstick is concerned.
Right. There is another school of thought. Certain foreign policy experts suggest that Sri Lanka is playing a thing called China card against the other countries. What does this really mean?
Now, first we must know what they mean by the China card. Now, can you say that to Prime Minister Modi? Is he playing the China card when he signs into over 100 billion US dollars worth of China investments in India over the next 5 years? Next 5 years, their pledge is to have 400 billion US dollars worth of China investments in India.
Right.
So, is it a China card? What is the level at which we are pitching ourselves?
Right.
Now, in the event we are working with Prime Minister Abe was here the previous week, the Japanese Prime Minister. Why did he come if he has no respect to Sri Lanka's development agenda and to the position in which Sri Lanka can be measured? Why did he come? Is there a Japanese card on that? Now, these are cards politically one can say, and always you pitch them up and you try to reflect in terms of very narrow political gains and
people want.
Identifications. Now, in the absence of China, where could we have turned to?
Exactly.
And also a lot of people are turning to China in terms of development relationships, where they are the ones who have the capacity to unleash. And they have done and delivered more than most of the other countries. And today you see how the economies in the West are performing. They are little sandwiched between the needs as much as between the pursuit. So today their need cannot be met in order to achieve the pursuits. So therefore it's a very serious issue the western part of the world is facing.
Come back to Cross Current. After 300 years of a marriage with United Kingdom, Scotland wanted it out. But today, when the results came, it is not all the Scots who wanted it out. 45% said they want to go out, but 55% said no, they want to stay in the United Kingdom. Now, what triggered this? What would have been the repercussions had they gone out, or will this end here? My guest today, as we continue our chat, is Rohitha Bogolagama, former Minister of Foreign Affairs. All of a sudden, Mr. Bogolagama, a mere population of 4.2 million or 4.3 million wanted it out, and they had this yes and the no vote. What were these reasons you see that triggered this?
I take it the time they got greater autonomy in 2011, when they set up the Scottish Parliament. One pledge that they declared in the Scottish Parliament was that they would seek a referendum to decide whether they should be part of the United Kingdom or be independent Scotland. Now, this is the result of that resolution that got transformed into a referendum in September 2014, and that was held yesterday. Results came out today.
Yeah.
You got the result right, because 45% of the people who voted, I think about over 75% voted,
Yes.
and 1.6 million people said yes, and around about 2 million people said no, will remain part of the United Kingdom. So there's a gap of about 10%. That made the difference between wanting to leave the United Kingdom as a unit and be an independent Scotland, and the others want to remain as part of Scotland. I think what is important is now to look at what Prime Minister Cameron said on the results. I wonder whether you have the speech coming up, but when it comes, you'll witness it. He just gave very subtly one thing.
I think, Mr. Bogolagama, like you wanted, let's watch Prime Minister Cameron's speech soon after the vote, right now, and then we'll talk more.
Thank you.
Good morning. The people of Scotland have spoken, and it is a clear result. They have kept our country of four nations together. And like millions of other people, I am delighted. As I said during the campaign, it would have broken my heart to see our United Kingdom come to an end. Across our country, but also around the world. So now it is time for our United Kingdom to come together and to move forward. A vital part of that will be a balanced settlement, fair to people in Scotland, and importantly to everyone in England, Wales and Northern Ireland as well. Fair to people in Scotland, and importantly to everyone. And it was right that we respected the SNP's majority in Holyrood and gave the Scottish people their right to have their say. Let us also remember why it was right to ask the definitive question, yes or no. Because now the debate has been settled for a generation in our United Kingdom. And I wanted more than anything for our United Kingdom. We now have a chance, a great opportunity, to change the way the British people are governed and change it for the better. Or as Alex Salmond has said, perhaps for a lifetime. So there can be no disputes. We have delivered on devolution under this government, and we will do so again in the next Parliament. The three pro-union parties have made commitments, clear commitments, on further powers for the Scottish Parliament. We will ensure that those commitments are honoured in full. And I can announce today that Lord Smith of Kelvin, who so successfully led Glasgow's Commonwealth Games, has agreed to oversee the process to take forward these devolution commitments, with powers over tax, spending and welfare, all agreed by November, and draft legislation published by January. Just as the people of Scotland will have more power over their...
Right, that is David Cameron. Soon after the winning, he's a happy man now.
He should be.
His sayings, are you in agreement, or what?
Yeah,
would you
there are
add to
two
that?
things I find in his statement. One is the fact that United as Prime Minister is quite delighted, or the fact that there are four countries within the United Kingdom, that is England, Wales, then North Ireland and Scotland.
Yes. Yes.
They still remain together and onwards. With that statement, he also highlighted one thing, as if there is a deficiency in terms of what is being given to Scotland. And that's what now they are trying to rebuild on that. And all parties are in agreement towards greater devolution for the other states in the United Kingdom. Now, this is the important factor. I think what the referendum has ultimately achieved is more than being a separate country from that of the United Kingdom, and they want to remain part of the United Kingdom and get more powers to themselves.
Right.
I think to that extent, the referendum has had an effect towards giving the Scottish people great autonomy, great opportunity for the future.
Yeah.
And here is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom conceding to that. So I think on both sides, I think they are winners. Yeah. Ones who said yes for the separate Scotland are equally have won the day, as much as the ones who said no, will remain part of the United Kingdom and share in the greater good for all of us. So I think this is fairly relevant for us all in the whole world. Whether being separated, whether you are going to get more, or being together, you can achieve greater good for all our people. I think that's also a good, clear message universally that we can pitch in terms of the outcome of the Scottish referendum result.
Yeah, but in one of the things that these people who wanted it out were saying was that there is tremendous contribution from the Scottish economy to the British economy, and the controlling power traditionally handed down were too much to them. And one of the key things is this oil thing, which is in Scotland. What is your take on that? Are there radical? My question: are there radical changes of the controlling mannerism Westminster has on Scotland has to change now?
So I don't know whether they could change to that extent as much as they say. For the reason, oil is found in North Sea,
right?
And most of the oil fields are close to the Scottish jurisdiction
right.
than of the British, the other rest of the British jurisdictions. Now with that, you extract oil more from the Scottish oil fields. About 95% of the oil comes from the Northern Sea. North Sea is coming from the Scottish jurisdiction. So how much of share the Scottish are going to enjoy in terms of the total revenue the United Kingdom is deriving from the oil and gas,
right.
and how they are going to split on this. And that will be the concern of the Scottish people, and that will be a continuing concern. You get more from us, and we are having less coming from back to us. So you have to now see a reasonable level of sharing in terms of the world. Now these were always these struggles, these separatist agendas get created when you are not being given sufficiently, and sometimes when you give late. So I think now the message is clear. They have to work on the mechanisms in terms of sharing the greater benefits with the whole of United Kingdom equally, without getting too much of dominance or leaving too much of dominance only in the hands of the Westminster.
Right. I think there are certain reactions, Mr. Pukulagama, that people made during this time, the public, and lots of journalists captured them. I think we'll have a look at them now, and we'll see what the people had in their minds.
I'm so happy. We worked really hard, been on the doorsteps every week, every day. We started at 8 this morning, leafleting everywhere, out saying no to everyone, helping them, even reminding them to vote. We weren't even suggesting our view on them, we just wanted them to vote, and it really paid off, and we're really, really happy.
Despite all the Deutsche Bank chat and all the RBS and all the NHS scare stories, at the end of the day, our friends and our family are in England. We speak the same language, wear the same clothes, we watch the same TV programmes, we have the same culture, respect for human rights, and that's why we're better together, in my opinion anyway.
Absolutely over the moon. I couldn't be happier. It's just ecstatic. This evening has been, but this whole day has just been amazing, and I'm so pleased that Scotland's decided to stay with the rest of the UK.
Absolutely amazing. Like I didn't think this would happen. They shouted the loudest, so it made it seem like it was a majority, but we're obviously the silent, dignified majority, and we pushed it through, and it just shows that Scotland loves the UK and the UK loves Scotland. So
reaction from people in Scotland after the no has won. Now, these people who wanted this, yes, is this a fundamentalist nationalistic movement? Or is
I would look at it, it's a nationalistic movement. I don't know how much the fundamental elements are getting reflected in terms of the nationalistic the pursuit and the intentions, but it's a nationalistic movement. But therefore, I would look at it this way. Now, Scotland has been part of United Kingdom, well recognized. And United Kingdom is part of the world powers. They are having a seat in the National Security Council as well, one of the 5 powers in the world. And economically, as United Kingdom, they are about number 6, 7 in the world list of after US, China, then come the Japan, Canada, Germany, France, and United Kingdom on the economic line. So that the strength of you to be part of a stronger partner is greater for your security, for your pursuits, for the people's opportunities, etc. And sail along with that, whilst protecting your identity, because Scottish have been always having their distinct identity as Scottish. And I think what they are trying to reach now is greater autonomy, being part of the United Kingdom. And with this, I think they will stand to benefit on both ways. One is their national security expense will not be there for them. Other, if they create a separate state, there will be enormous cost in terms of their national security, and also their territorial integrity to be protected all the time. And the pursuits in terms of technological development of your country, because the world is now moving more in terms of technological pursuits, will be having greater opportunity as Scottish to be part of the United Kingdom. So I think when you look at, that's what the business community has reacted fully in support of being part of the United Kingdom, including the chambers started getting into the campaign toward the latter part, the Scottish chambers, Glasgow one, the Edinburgh one, and supported the drive to say no for the referendum. So they became the majority party later on, because they all realized if you get limited to a Scottish country, and a country by itself without being part of the United Kingdom, is the business community that will stand to lose most.
Yes.
Because you have free access across the whole 4 countries together, rather than to be confined to one country.
Right.
And with this thing, and also for the youth, I would say, being part of the United Kingdom, they get greater strengths, because they will become recognized more in the world, or with a UK passport. Than with a Scottish passport limited to only to some of the countries maybe.
Yeah. Now in the early 90s, a trend came that countries which are split it up, wanted together. You saw the Germany. And if my memory serves me correct, somewhere down the line, Canada had this kind of a vote with Quebec, wanted to go.
French
but now,
part.
Isn't this a clear message for all of them, Mr. Bogolagamba, that small countries like us, UK, where the population may be more, if you are together with the established country, it is more easy and more feasible for development. And certain elements, even in this country, who wanted this kind of separation, isn't this a message for them that the successful, correct way is to be together for success?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think there is no parallel between Scotland and Sri Lanka's separatist movement, for the reason that Sri Lanka was never a separate country. Scotland was a separate country in terms of its Scottish identity, and they joined the Union only 350 years or 35 years ago. Whereas Sri Lanka has remained for the last 2,500 years of its history, of her history, of one country. And the LTT tried to create a separation, and they tried to do that through terrorism. And there was no just causes satisfying such desires. But to the whole world, the need for countries to remain is a good message that has got conveyed. Because countries remaining together without getting fragmented will only command strengths. Fragmentation only diminish their strengths, and thereby the lack of, in today's pursuit, that's what I got the comparisons of US and China for that matter. China has 1,400 remaining together, will be a major dynamo for the whole world, as much as India remaining together. Now, see the separation that has led India into a chaotic state in a lot of borders of India alone, and like that of Pakistan-India borders, etc. But for Sri Lanka, the message is clear. We have defeated terrorism, so therefore there is no question of separatism in any form, in any manifestation. And for the whole world, the Scottish referendum was very much a case in point. However much you can have certain fundamentals associated with nationalistic approaches and movements, but remaining together with the bigger partners will only benefit you for the greater good of your pursuits for the future and to be sustainable development for a given country.
Ms. Rohitha Bogalagama, thank you very much for joining us on Cross Current today, and thank you very much for sharing those very valuable thoughts on all the topics we spoke about, and we hope to see you once again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janaki.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that's Cross Current for you today. My guest was former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Rohitha Bogalagama, and I'll see you next week at the same time with another current topic or two topics if that's the case on Cross Current. Have a good evening and a great weekend.